Single Dad CEO's incredible journey, Maid becomes unexpected love, revealing a heartwarming truth. Jake Parker stood in his glossy office, the city's skyline behind him, a world he built from the ground up. But the trophies lining his shelves offered no solace. They were empty reminders of what he sacrificed, time with his spirited 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Since his wife passed, all Jake knew was how to provide. The American dream was now a burden he bore alone, a war veteran turned CEO, drowning in responsibilities, trying desperately to be both mother and father. "Dad, can we play a game tonight?" Lily asked, her big brown eyes sparkling with hope as she twirled a crayon. Jake's heart tightened. With his last meeting dragging on, he could already feel the disappointment washing over her face before he even replied. "Sweetheart, I have to finish up some work." Her smile faded. Another promise broken. "How about tomorrow?" But deep down, he knew tomorrow would be just as busy, she huffed, drawing a jagged line across the paper. "You always say tomorrow." The weight of her words sank into his chest like a stone. Then Maria walked in. A diligent immigrant, she was hired to help manage the chaotic household, but she became so much more. With her gentle smile and wise ways, she began bridging the gap between father and daughter. "Lily, how about I read you a bedtime story?" Maria suggested one evening, her soft voice lacing the air with warmth. Jake watched from the doorway, torn between feeling grateful for the help and a flush of guilt. As days turned into weeks, he noticed Lily laughing a little more, her walls crumbling with Maria's nurturing spirit. It felt foreign, watching their bond grow. They shared glances that indicated an understanding he lacked. The whispers around town hinted that a single dad hiring a maid was breaking conventional boundaries. Jake felt the judgment, but Maria's resilience reminded him of his own struggles. But success weighed heavily on Jake. Just as he began to find small moments of peace, a financial crisis struck his company. Stress clawed at him nightly, turning their father-daughter dinners into missed opportunities. He could see it. A cloud of sadness hung over Lily, her laughter replaced by a growing distance. How could he provide for her while shattering their bond? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as chaos threatened to unravel everything, a gut-wrenching storm bore down on their suburban town, uprooting lives and homes. In this moment of community crisis, the walls of Jake's isolation trembled. Neighbors banded together. Standing at the edge of his driveway, Jake watched people come alive with compassion and determination. It was then he realized family wasn't just about blood, it was built on shared hardships, laughter, and love across differences. Jake had a fierce protector in Maria and a spirited daughter who needed him present. Would he be brave enough to rise against the expectations clinging to him like a shadow? As the storm raged around them, Jake faced a choice that would define not only his future but the relationship with Lily: embrace these newfound relationships or retreat into the traditional mold that felt so confining. Would fear dictate his path, or could he learn to embrace the unexpected? A crack of lightning illuminated his thoughts, leaving him torn between two worlds, leaving readers eager to see where his heart would lead him next. The storm subsided as quickly as it had arrived, leaving behind a landscape of debris and broken branches. Jake stepped outside, his heart racing. The world around him felt different, as if the crisis had peeled away layers of mundane routine. His neighbors were in the streets, clearing away the remnants of the tempest. "Right here!" shouted Mr. Thompson, shaking his head while dragging a fallen tree branch. "Looks like we're going to need a chainsaw, folks." Laughter erupted from a group nearby, their smiles contagious despite the work ahead. Jake watched as Lily joined Maria, who had gathered a few kids to play in a puddle, splashing laughter into the air. He couldn't help but smile. Maria didn't merely clean his home, she was rebuilding a sense of family, a sense of belonging that he had unknowingly craved. "Come on, Dad!" Lily shouted, her eyes gleaming as they caught his gaze. She was slicing the air with her tiny hands, inviting him into her whirl of joy. But uncertainty loomed. He had always put work before play, could he let that go, even just for a moment? With every hesitant step towards them, Jake felt a release of pent-up pressure. The laughter and chaos pulled him in. The familiar rhythm of his responsibilities faded, replaced by the vibrant heartbeats of community. He knelt beside Lily and Maria, stifling a chuckle as they attempted to leap over puddles, only to splash down into them. "Are you going to let me drown?" he asked, half joking, half awed by the joy he had nearly forgotten existed. "No way. You're on our team now." Lily beamed with a confidence that struck Jake deeply. Team. It was a word that echoed against the worries in his mind. Maybe it didn't matter if he was a CEO or an exhausted single father echoed in the bustling city. Maybe being a man meant embracing vulnerability too. The days grew brighter as the community rallied together to help those affected by the storm. Each afternoon, they gathered, sharing supplies and stories. An unspoken bond was forming. Jake felt the pressure slowly transform into a lighter air, lifting him higher than he ever thought possible. One rare evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over their neighborhood, Jake and Maria found themselves side by side on the porch. Lily had fallen asleep after an adventurous day, her little body curled up in a blanket. "Thank you for organizing everything," Jake ventured, suddenly aware of how much he meant it. Maria turned to him, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "You know, Jake," she said thoughtfully, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Sometimes, it's okay to lean on others too. You don't have to be the only one holding everything together." Her words echoed in his heart, as an unanticipated warmth filled him. Was that what he had been longing for? As Maria spoke, he thought of the whispers how society painted images of the role of a man. Could he redefine it, forging a new path that valued connections over tradition? The air was thick with possibilities, and he felt drawn to this new idea, but uncertainty crept in. What if he turned to Maria for support, and everything changed? Something flickered between them, a shared understanding, a sweetness that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Could their relationship shift beyond the roles they currently played? As if sensing the tension, Maria cleared her throat. "Jake, I've been thinking." Jake leaned in closer, his heart racing with anticipation, ready to hear what lay ahead. What would she say? Did she feel the same pull he did? Uncertainty loomed large, but he wasn't ready to let fear dictate his next move. The moment felt poised for something new, something transformative. Would Jake take the leap, or would he remain stuck, shrouded in doubt? The night deepened, the sunset giving way to new shadows, as their hearts hung in the balance. Jake leaned in, anticipation humming in the air like static before a storm. "What have you been thinking?" he urged, his voice barely louder than a whisper. Maria hesitated, her gaze shifting from Jake to the horizon where the last colors of dusk mingled with the night. "I've seen how you've been with Lily, how you're still figuring things out after everything," she said softly, her voice laced with a sincerity that made his heartbeat quicken. "And I really admire that." "Thanks," he replied, feeling the warmth of her compliment wash over him. But then the weight of unspoken words lingered between them. I want what's best for her." Maria nodded. "You're doing great, Jake. But being a dad also means showing her it's okay to be vulnerable, to need help sometimes." His heart fluttered at the insight, a truth he had struggled to acknowledge. Here, in the depths of their conversation, he felt as if he was unwrapping layers of his own being, exposing fragile parts he often buried under responsibility and pride. "Do you think it's really possible to change?" he asked, vulnerability pouring through him like fresh rain on parched earth. "I've always been the one who is supposed to have all the answers." She smiled at him, a mix of understanding and encouragement. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being honest. It's okay not to know. Could she see him? Not just the focused CEO or the tired single dad, but the man who feared stepping outside the lines everyone expected him to stay within. As he searched her eyes, he felt the beginning of something new crack open inside him. A soft siren echoed in the distance, its wailing punctuating the stillness. He remembered how chaotic life had been just days earlier. The storm had ripped through his facade and left him raw, but here he was, finding beauty in the mess. What if leaning on you moves us into unknown waters? He pondered, his voice steady yet uncertain. What does that mean for us? Maria's expression shifted, her breath catching slightly. I think it means we explore together. It could be different, but perhaps that's not a bad thing. Maybe it's what we both need. Those words hung in the air, heavy yet hopeful, inviting exploration. He felt drawn to her, an undeniable pull that sliced through the relaxed atmosphere. Yet, at the same time, fear flickered in the corners of his heart. Could stepping beyond friendship risk everything? Jake took a breath, trying to gather his thoughts as the weight of their conversation settled like a thick fog around them. I've been scared of change. She finished for him, a knowing smile touching her lips. It can be unnerving, I get that. But look at what you've already faced this past week. You've adapted, reconnected, opened yourself up. This could be just another step. Suddenly, a firefly flickered by, weaving through the night shadows, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. Watching that little creature glide gracefully reminded Jake of how fleeting moments could be. What if this was one of those moments that not only changed him but also brought two souls together? Maybe we take it slow, he said. See where this takes us, without rushing into anything. Exactly, Maria agreed, her eyes twinkling in a way that made him smile. It's about the journey, right? No pressure. Jake held her gaze, feeling a connection that felt both like a promise and an invitation. As the last light of day faded and stars emerged one by one, the distance between them felt less extensive, as if they were two drifting pieces floating closer together, bound by invisible threads. Maybe leaning on others wasn't just about asking for help, it was about daring to seek the warmth of togetherness. Together, they could navigate the uncharted waters ahead, hand in hand. Just then, the sound of laughter drifted from the street below, where neighbors shared stories and relief in the aftermath of the storm. But Jake noted a different kind of sound rising within him, a spark of hope, bright and undeniable. What if we step outside? He asked suddenly, rising to his feet. Join them? Maria looked surprised but intrigued. Right now? Why not? A little fresh air, some laughter might do us both good. Okay, she said, her eyes sparkling. Lead the way, teen captain. As they descended the porch steps, Jake felt a surge of newfound confidence. Whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it. Standing shoulder to shoulder, he and Maria stepped into the twilight, their hearts aligned in a newfound rhythm of promise and connection. But little did Jake know, the night held more than just laughter and togetherness. A storm was brewing, a different kind of storm that would test everything he believed about love, family, and what a true partnership could mean. Would he find the strength to navigate his heart's uncharted waters, or would he be swept away by the tides of uncertainty once more? The laughter from the street enveloped them like a warm embrace as Jake and Maria stepped off the porch. The first hints of laughter and chatter felt like an invitation, a reminder that life continued to pulse with joy, even amid chaos. With each step, Jake felt the weight of the conversation they just shared fade, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. He turned to Maria. So, what are you hoping for in a night like this? She shrugged, her smile lighting up the corner of her eyes. Just a break. Laughter, maybe a dance, something that makes us forget the heaviness for a bit. Let us aim for it then. Together, they joined the cluster of neighbors gathered under the streetlights, joyfully sharing stories over beers and homemade treats. The air was thick with the scent of grilled food and fresh-cut grass. It felt familiar yet charged with possibility. Jake's gaze caught his neighbor, Jenny, who was animatedly recounting her story about the storm. And then the wind picked up like a freight train. She laughed, mimicking the sound of the roaring gusts. The crowd roared with laughter, and Jake found himself chuckling too. Maria leaned closer, her voice barely above the din. You ever think about how stories connect us? Absolutely, he replied, glancing at her. Like this. Shared experiences draw people together. It's comforting. And we're all experiencing this together right now, she added, looking around. Strangers laughing as if they've known each other forever. Suddenly, the laughter gave way to a quiet awe as a shooting star streaked across the sky, a bright line illuminating their faces for just a moment. Catch that? Jake said, exhilarated. Yep. Make a wish. Maria said, her voice filled with mischief. He thought for a moment. I'm going to wish for clarity. Clarity, huh? That's a good one. She grinned, then playfully nudged him. I'd wish for an adventure. Something unforgettable. Let us grab one then together, Jake said, feeling an unexpected thrill at the thought. The night stretched ahead, full of potentials they hardly dared to grasp yet. They listened to neighbors share tales, joined in on the banter, and even danced to a spontaneous rhythm that someone had started. Jake caught himself stealing glances at Maria as she laughed and twirled, her happiness radiating like the stars above. He realized just how much he wanted to know her better, but deep down, something stirred the nagging question of whether venturing into this new territory would threaten the delicate balance he'd maintained since everything changed. He was still reeling from being a single dad, still healing from his past. Could he really take the risk? As the music drifted along with the laughter, Jake lost track of time, wrapped in the moment, feeling a growing connection with Maria. They shared a few jokes, the banter flowing easily, each punchline pulling them closer. Just then, a loud cheer erupted from nearby as someone opened up a bottle of sparkling cider, letting it fizz over into the night. Cheers! To fresh starts! Came the triumphant call. Jake raised his cup, and for a moment, he felt a sense of belonging he hadn't anticipated. Are you ready for a new adventure? Maria said, her eyes sparkling. Her question hung heavily in the air. It was a simple inquiry, yet it echoed deep in Jake's heart. Could this adventurous spirit be what he needed? Was he ready to explore more than just friendship? Before he could answer, a sudden commotion drew their attention across the street. One of the neighbors had tripped on an unseen bump in the pavement, sending their drink flying. Laughter erupted, a mixture of concern and humor, and Jake couldn't help but chuckle at the joyful chaos. As the laughter faded, his heart raced with anticipation. This moment felt fleeting yet poignant. If he was really going to embrace this fresh start, he knew he had to confront his fears head-on. Let us jump in, he said suddenly, turning to Maria with newfound resolve. Let us take this adventure together. But before they had a chance to grasp fully what that meant, a storm siren blared in the distance, a sharp reminder that things could change at any moment. Did you hear that? Maria's smile faltered, her eyes darting nervously to the darkening horizon. Jake's pulse quickened. Yeah, but it's probably just a test or something. But as everyone looked up, a sense of unease crept over the crowd. The night wasn't finished surprising them yet. Would they find shelter, or would they have to ride out another storm? The cheerful chatter began to fade as the siren's wail pierced the air. Jake's heart raced, adrenaline kicking in as he scanned the gathering. People were looking around, confusion etched on their faces. A few parents clutched their children tightly, and whispers started to ripple through the crowd like a spreading chill. Maria turned to him, concern shadowing her bright eyes. What does that mean? I don't know, Jake admitted, trying to sound reassuring even as worry gnawed at him. Maybe they just want everyone to head indoors. He could feel his own anxiety creeping in. After all, storms were unpredictable, and having experienced too many false alarms, it didn't take much for the anxious energy to heighten. Before they could decide what to do, their neighbor, Dave, took charge, his voice commanding and steady. All right, everyone. Let us head inside and play it safe. The community center is nearby, and it's got shelter. Jake nodded, realizing that was probably wise. We should go. It's better to be safe. He grasped Maria's hand, a reassuring gesture that felt oddly comforting amidst the chaos. Let's do it, she said, squeezing his hand back. He could feel her trust in him, igniting a flicker of courage within. They walked briskly, the crowd moving as a single entity towards the community center. As they approached, the building loomed ahead, its lights warm and inviting against the darkening sky. A sense of relief washed over Jake, though beneath it simmered an awareness that tonight had shifted. Inside, the atmosphere was different. Neighbors hugged closer in small groups, casting anxious glances at the windows. Children dashed to fill their cups with punch, laughter bubbling back into the air, but it was laced with tension. Jake and Maria settled at a table, near a large window where the evening sky was turning ominous shades of deep navy. Do you think it's going to be bad? Maria asked, her brow creased with concern. I hope not, Jake replied, scanning the faces around them. But we'll be okay together. He squeezed her hand again, the gesture feeling less like reassurance and more like a promise. Together, she echoed, her tone softening. The weight of the storm loomed outside, but in that moment, he felt a warmth radiating from her. As the minutes passed, an unexpected calm fell over Jake. He looked around at the members of his community, faces he had seen for years but never really engaged with. Stories began to surface, their worries and hopes shared like intricate tapestries woven in the face of uncertainty. Jenny, the neighbor who had sparked laughter earlier, stood up, trying to rally the group. Hey everyone, this storm could be a chance to bond. How about we share our wildest storm stories? That drew chuckles and groans, and Jake glanced over at Maria, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she leaned in. I bet I can top everyone's story. Is that a challenge? He teased, grinning at the thought of her enthusiasm brightening the moment. Absolutely. Get ready. As people started to exchange tales, others chimed in, sharing everything from the absurd to the heartwarming. Shoulders relaxed as laughter gradually returned, and Jake felt the energy shift again, the storm outside becoming less of a threat and more a backdrop to their shared vulnerability. In between stories, he shifted closer to Maria, feeling more anchored in the swirling emotions of the night. Thank you for being here with me, Maria, he said earnestly. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Her gaze held his for a moment longer than usual. It's nice to have someone share the uncertainty with. But just then, a loud crash echoed from outside, a sharp crack that made everyone jump. Murmurs of concern rippled through the room as the lights flickered. For a brief moment, silence enveloped them. What was that? Someone whispered nervously. Jake met Maria's wide eyes, the mix of anxiety and excitement sending another wave through his chest. They were on the precipice of something unknown, and he knew, whatever lay ahead, storm or otherwise, it was time to lean into this adventure together. Would they weather the storm and come out stronger? Or would the chaos shift them apart? The loud crash outside echoed like a thunderclap, a stark reminder of nature's unpredictability. Jake's heart pounded. He exchanged worried glances with Maria, both of them aware that the comfort of their little world inside the community center could be fleeting. Jenny cleared her throat, attempting to regain control of the situation. All right everyone, let us stay calm. I'm sure it was just a tree branch or something. She offered a smile, but it did little to settle the nervous energy in the room. Jake felt the atmosphere thicken, tension palpable as whispers permeated the crowd. The flickering lights did nothing to quell the rising anxiety. He tightened his grip on Maria's hand, feeling the warmth under his skin grounding him amidst the turmoil. Stay close, he murmured, leaning in so she could hear him above the growing commotion. As the storm intensified, the lights finally succumbed to the pressure, plunging the room into darkness. Gasps erupted around them, splintered laughter mingled with nervous chatter. The community center transformed into a cocoon of restless shadows, illuminated only by the distant flashes of lightning outside. Jake. Maria's voice wavered slightly, her grip tightening on his arm. He could hear the tremor beneath her words, a reflection of the tightening knot in his stomach. "I'm here," he assured, searching through the darkness for her eyes, hoping to convey some steadiness through mere presence. When their eyes met, he found solace in her earnest gaze. "Just focus on my voice. It's going to be okay." And then, in a breaking wave of reality, a chilling howl swept through the building, louder than anything Jake had ever heard. It felt like the wind tried to pull them apart, and for a moment, he feared he might lose her in the chaos. Then, amid all the noise, the sound of laughter pierced through. A few kids, determined to keep spirits high, started to make shadow puppets on the wall with tiny flashlights. Their playful giggles, like a million tiny suns breaking through the storm clouds, enveloped the room in a wave of warmth. Jake found himself smiling involuntarily. Maria chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling, shimmering in the dark, reflecting bravery rather than fear. Maybe, just maybe, they could re-envision this calamity together, turning it into a memory rather than a disaster. "Let us join them," Maria suggested, her tone brightening the oppressive air. "Yes, let us," Jake replied, suddenly invigorated. They stood and made their way toward the source of the laughter, weaving through the chairs and clusters of people like the storm winds outside. As they got closer, they took a seat on the floor. Jake held up his hand to create a shadow fish, and Maria, with a hushed yet excited whisper, followed his lead with a shadow of her own, a graceful bird gliding in the air. Soon, others joined in, the room exploding into a tapestry of light and imagination, battles of creativity shielded from the storm. "See? We're all in this together." Jake called out to the room, laughter erupting once more. With every shadow that danced on the wall, Jake felt his resolve solidifying. No matter how fierce the storm raged outside, they had something special here, a fleeting moment of shared humanity in the face of chaos. He glanced at Maria, feeling a wave of determination wash over him. They were not just existing, but living, making bonds stronger than fear. But just as Jake began to feel a sense of triumph, another loud crash cut through the revelry, more violent and closer than before. The urgency in the voices of the adults rose, fraying the carefree atmosphere. What was that? Someone whispered again, anxiety creeping back in. Jake's heart sank. He turned to Maria, hoping they wouldn't have to face something worse. There was a growing uncertainty now, tugging at the edges of the warmth they had created. Tension coiled in the air once more. Would they emerge from this night with newfound strength, or were they on the brink of something they couldn't control? The atmosphere was charged, and all eyes were on the door, waiting for the next storm to break. The tension in the room was palpable, hanging thick in the air, filling every nook and cranny like the gusts of wind that rattled the building. Jake felt a chill crawl down his spine, but he couldn't afford to show fear. Not now. Not when Maria was looking at him with wide, concerned eyes. "What do you think it was?" Maria asked softly, her voice barely rising above the whispering crowd. Jake noticed how the fingers intertwined with his were trembling slightly, betraying her calm exterior. I don't know," he admitted, trying to keep his tone steady. "Just stay close. We'll figure it out together." His mind raced, anxiety making his thoughts chaotic. The laughter from a moment ago felt like a distant memory now, leaving them in a bubble of uncertainty. Moments later, another crash echoed, more forceful this time, rattling the windows. Jenny, trying to maintain her composure, stood up, her silhouette barely visible in the dim light. "Everyone, please stay calm. I'll check what happened." But as she moved toward the door, the collective breath of the room caught in unison. "No, Jenny, wait." A voice called out, but it was too late. The door swung open with a creak that sent a wave of dread washing through the crowd. Jake glanced at Maria, eyes wide with concern. "Should we?" Before he could finish, a figure appeared in the doorway, clutching debris and rain-soaked clothing. It was Dave, the local mailman, his face pale and eyes wild. "They need help. A tree fell on a car just outside." He gasped for breath, gathering the attention of the room with urgency. A murmur swept through the gathered crowd, half fear, half disbelief. Jake felt Maria's fingers tighten around his. "Should we go help?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Someone needs to," he replied, feeling the pull of responsibility. "But it's dangerous out there. We should stay together." Another loud crack echoed from the direction of the door. The group collectively flinched, and Maria took a deep breath before stepping forward. "People might be hurt. We can't just do nothing, can we?" The argument settled in Jake's chest like a dark cloud. She was right. They had to act, yet he felt tethered between the instinct to protect and the urge to help. He looked around the room and saw the adults whispering feverishly among themselves, trying to weigh their options. The children, still unaware of the gravity, were now clustered together, their laughter now replaced by whispers. "Okay," Jake finally said, his voice firm. "Let us gather a small group. If it's safe, we can see what we can do. But we'll stay together, no one goes off alone." Maria nodded passionately, and soon a few more people stepped up, Jenny, Dave, and a couple of others. Together, they moved toward the door, lights from cell phones illuminating their muddy path. Jake found himself at the front, Maria beside him, their hands still linked. The moment they stepped outside, the storm hit them full force. Rain soaked through their clothes in an instant, and the wind howled like a living entity. Visibility faded, and the air tasted of electricity. "Follow me," Dave shouted above the roar. "The fallen tree is this way." As they moved through the sheets of rain, Jake felt the weight of the decision. Unsure of what lay ahead but knowing he had to keep Maria safe, he squeezed her hand tighter. They made their way through the chaos, navigating debris, fingers interlocked like lifelines in the deluge, but as they rounded the corner, a heart-stopping sight met their eyes: a toppled tree, its branches twisted like a victim of the storm, a car crumpled beneath it. Jake's stomach clenched. He could hear faint cries, panic rising within. As fear gripped him, he caught sight of a figure struggling to emerge from the car. The storm beat down, but adrenaline spurred him forward. He turned to Maria, heart racing. "We have to help. Stay close." With every step toward the wreckage, doubt flickered in the back of his mind. Was this the beginning of something transformative, or had they just stepped deeper into the maelstrom? With the storm raging around them, they charged toward the car, knowing they had no choice but to face whatever waited on the other side. In that moment, everything could change. Would they emerge stronger together, or would this night mark the end of their safety? The answers loomed, shrouded in shadows. The crunch of wet leaves under their feet drowned out the chaos of the storm as they approached the wreckage. Jake's heart hammered in his chest, and he filtered out everything except the voice inside him that screamed for action. As they neared the car, he spotted the figure: a woman, tangled in shards of glass and metal. Her eyes were wide with fear, struggling to assess her situation. Help me!" she gasped, her voice weak but urgent. "Hang on. We're coming," Jake called, trying to sound braver than he felt. Maria squeezed his hand tightly, her face pale from the sight but fired with determination. "Jenny, can you check if anyone else is inside?" he shouted over the tempest, keeping his eyes glued on the woman, who looked so helpless against the wreckage. Jenny nodded and rushed toward the other side of the car. Jake turned his attention back to the woman. "What's your name?" He didn't know why he asked, but somehow, it felt important to connect, even in the horror of the situation. "Lisa. My daughter," she's in the back. Her panic became visceral, sending a bolt of fear through Jake. "Maria," he yelled, keeping his composure. "I need you to stay with Lisa. Keep her calm." Maria nodded, stepping beside the woman, her concern spilling out in soothing words. "It's okay, Lisa. You're safe now. We're here to help you," she said softly, her voice steady despite the storm. As Jake moved to assess the damage, he saw the twisted metal and broken windows. He gritted his teeth. They had to get inside. "Dave! Help me with this door!" he shouted, gesturing urgently. Together they pried, muscles straining against the force of the wind. With a final heave, the door released, revealing the empty back seat where a faint whimper echoed. "Mom!" a small voice called from within. The sound sent Jake's blood racing. "Mom, where are you?" "Sweetheart. I'm here," Lisa cried, her voice breaking. "Stay with me, Mom. I'm scared." Jake glanced at Maria, whose eyes shone with fear and determination. "I'll go in. I'll get her," he said quickly, flashing a determined smile. He crawled into the car, slipping past the wreckage and clenching his hands against her daughter's trembling form. "Hey, I'm Jake. We're here to help you, okay?" The girl nodded, eyes wide with fear. "I want to go home," she whimpered, and Jake felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He could only imagine the terror she was experiencing. "We'll get you out of here," he promised, as he gathered the small child into his arms. "But you have to be brave for me, all right?" A loud crack split through the air, and Jake's stomach sank. A nearby tree was buckling under the pressure of the storm. He needed to get them out fast. "Maria! Help her!" he yelled, struggling to maintain his balance as the car shifted precariously. "We need to move." Maria was there, lifting Lisa out of the wreckage, her gaze fierce and protective. With each step back toward safety, the storm raged harder, but there was a flicker of hope as they retreated from the car. Suddenly, another echoing crash rang out. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the wind shrieked. Jake's heart sank as he realized the tree was going to move. He shouted, pushing Maria and Lisa forward just as the tree fell, mere feet from where they had stood moments ago. Gasping for air, they stumbled to safety, the chaos receding slightly as they found shelter beneath a nearby awning. The relentless rain pounded against the pavement, mixing with their ragged breaths. Jake looked at Maria, feeling an electric surge of gratitude and something deeper, closer. They had faced the storm together, made it through on sheer will and a shared commitment to each other. "Thank you," he whispered, not sure if he was speaking to Maria or to fate itself. "Let us get them somewhere safe," she replied, determination in her eyes. As they huddled together, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance, a sign of hope in the raging storm. But amidst relief, Jake felt a tightening in his chest. He grasped the truth they could no longer ignore the bond they had forged in the storm. What lay ahead? Danger. Still lurked in the shadows, both from the storm and within their hearts. Would they be able to navigate through this tempest and find clarity in the chaos? The night held more secrets than they could yet imagine. The rain began to ease, but the winds howled around them, whipping through the trees like a banshee. Jake's heart raced, not just from their recent brush with death but from the nagging question of what lay ahead. They had saved Lisa, but the night was far from over. The group huddled together as the shadows stretched ominously in the dim light. "Let us get back to the main road," Jake urged, peering through the sheets of water. "Help is coming, and we need to be ready." Maria nodded, holding Lisa's small hand tightly. "Honey, can you walk?" she asked gently, her voice smooth as silk despite the chaos around them. "I can try," Lisa sniffled, tears streaking down her dirt-smudged face. "Great. You're so brave," Maria said, kneeling down to wipe the child's face with her sleeve. Jake watched, his heart swelling. The way Maria spoke to Lisa was unlike anything he had seen. There was no moment to waste, but the warmth in her voice wrapped around him, drawing him in. They moved slowly, each step careful amidst the puddles forming on the ground beneath them. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and something almost like adventure, even amidst the wreckage of their night. He could see the main road up ahead, its faint glow a beacon of promise against the dark. When they reached the road, the distant sound of sirens grew louder. Jake's relief was short-lived. He looked back. "Where's Jenny?" he asked. Panic laced his words, setting his heart into a wild rhythm again. Suddenly, a figure emerged from behind the wreckage. Jenny, breathless and drenched, but unharmed. "I'm here. I just had to check one last thing," she called out, a shaky smile breaking through the fear. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Good work, Jenny," he praised, still trying to ground himself in the hope that flickered in front of them. The sirens were nearing rapidly now. He could see lights flashing in the dark, but then, just as relief began to wash over him, a loud rumble came from the direction of the wreck. Jake's heart dropped again. "The car, it's going to catch fire. Get back," he shouted, ushering his group away as the wind picked up again. He turned on his heel, racing back toward the chaos. "We need to clear everyone away." The trio watched as Jake dashed forward, the temperature rising as adrenaline coursed through him. He didn't even think twice about the danger. All that mattered was getting everyone out safely. Maria gripped Lisa's shoulders, her eyes wide with fear. "We can't let him do this alone," she insisted. Before he could respond, Maria began running towards Jake, with Lisa trailing behind her. "Wait!" he called out, scrambling after them. "It's too dangerous." But they pressed on, driven by the urgency of the moment. In his gut, Jake sensed a shift. The truth of what was brewing beneath the chaos was far deeper than just the fear of a fire. Memories of his own daughter flared in front of him, a ghost of pain mixed with hope. As they approached the car, Jake turned just as another massive branch crashed down nearby, sending shards of wood flying. He shielded Lisa instinctively, and before he could realize it, Maria was beside him, her face set with determination. "We can't give up," she shouted over the roar of the storm. "We need to save whoever is still out there. Let us go," he yelled back, feeling a surge of strength from Maria's resolve. They were not just a group of strangers anymore, they were a family forged in the storm. With each step, the bond tightened, not just between Jake and Maria but with Lisa and Jenny too. They pushed together, stepping into the chaos once more, as something inside Jake clicked into place. This was deeper than survival, it was about connection. What would they unearth from the darkness? As the reality of their situation pressed in around them, one question lingered just out of reach: would they find more than just safety amidst the storm, or were they destined to lose it all in a flash? The thunder rumbled louder, echoing the tempest inside them all. The storm had not faded, it stood against them, an antagonist alive with sound and fury. Yet, beneath that chaos, a spark ignited within Jake. It flared into a fierce resolve, a commitment to protect not just those in danger, but the growing family he had never expected to find. "Maria! We have to get Lisa to safety. Dave is still out there," he yelled, focusing on the now obliterated car that had stood as a life-threatening barrier. His heart raced, sensing the urgency mingling with hope. "Right," Maria replied, glancing toward the wreckage. "I'll get Lisa. You guide us." The little girl squeezed Maria's hand, her innocence making the weight of their mission feel even more pressing. As she steadied Lisa, Jake could see the determination in her eyes, the same fierce light that had drawn him to her during these past harrowing days. Together, they rushed toward the remnants of the car. Jake paused, scanning the filth and fear around him. "Dave!" he called, spotting his neighbor near the edge of the destruction, his broad shoulders pushing against debris. "We need to check in with you." "I'm good. Just clearing this off, we're almost there," Dave shouted, sweat mingling with rainwater, chiseled hands moving desperately. "Keep pushing, buddy," Jake replied, motivating the sudden camaraderie that resilience birthed among them. As they worked furiously, rain fell around them in sheets, but it became white noise in light of their focus. It felt like laboring against a relentless tide, yet pushing against an underlying current that promised survival. The group shared glances filled with silent agreement. There was nothing they couldn't conquer together. Maria, keeping Lisa snug at her side, turned to Jake amid the sound of cracking branches and roaring wind. "We can't let fear take over. We have to trust each other. We have to move. She didn't just mean physically, not just the task at hand, but a revelation that shook Jake's core. Change wasn't something to quell, it was a force to embrace. The love that flickered in the space between him and Maria was profound, raw, blossoming amid the emergency. Let us move. He shouted, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they began hauling debris away with all their might. Finally, with a cracking scream, Maria pushed back a fallen tree, revealing a shadowy figure. Is anyone there? Jake yelled into the abyss, his heart hammering against the vivid images rushing through his head. His daughter, the loss, the pain. A soft groan filtered through the debris. I'm here, just stuck, came Dave's strained voice. Hold tight. Jake called back, scrambling forward. With a few strong pulls, they managed to lift a branch just enough to free Dave. He emerged, muddy and exhausted but alive. Thanks for not leaving me in the storm. Dave grinned, although fear still clung to the edges of his smile. We're all in this together. Maria shouted back, the rhythm of the group propelling forward into their new mantra. Then, a shriek erupted, a high-pitched sound slicing through the air. Lisa. It's okay, Lisa, stay close to Maria. Jake called out, his heart thumping. You're safe. But before he could process further, another crack echoed, and a wave of wind sent debris spiraling. The nearby tree cracked and split, falling with a swift ferocity toward them. Get down! Jake yelled, pushing Maria and Lisa out of the way. In an instant, time stretched. He felt the pounding of each heartbeat, the screeching wind, then the crushing silence when they plummeted. Everything was jumbled but vivid. When Jake awoke, the world felt muted and soft. He blinked heavily but then froze, his body flooded with concern. Maria! He rasped, scrambling to sit up. Relief rushed through him when he saw her, unscathed and holding a frightened Lisa. Jake! You're awake. Maria knelt beside him, her voice shaking yet full of gratitude. You're okay. Is everyone all right? He croaked, trying to swallow against the ache in his throat. Mostly shaken but safe, Dave chimed in, pulling himself awkwardly upright. Thanks to you. That was quite the move back there. Yeah, we definitely needed a hero today, Maria added with a grateful smile, her eyes sparkling with a hint of affection. It struck him then these moments cemented bonds far deeper than mere circumstance. They were forming a family, fueled by mutual strength and trust. As the storm began to fade, the wind's frantic energy settled into the gentle rustle of leaves. A hush fell over the group, merging their breaths, their heartbeats sinking, as they exchanged glances of gratitude. Together, Jake finally said, looking deep into Maria's eyes. We're stronger together. With that simple phrase, the noise of fear hollowed out, replaced instead by a tender warmth radiating among them. From the fragments of chaos, hope had risen. They had survived, and in that survival, a quiet love blossomed too. As sirens grew closer, Jake felt the weight of his past and the promise of a new beginning. The love that started as a flicker ignited a fire. Against all odds, Jake could envision a future filled with laughter, one where he, Lily, and Maria stood strong as a family, navigating the uncharted waters ahead. Hope surged through him, a gentle affirmation that the storms of life might come, but together, they could weather anything. Let us get home, he said softly, determination glimmering in his voice. With newfound courage, they walked toward the edge of the road, ready to embrace life side by side. The air felt lighter now, filled with possibilities. Now, this is your moment. Don't wait not even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you never miss exclusive stories like this one. And leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a huge difference for us. Share your reactions, thoughts, and feelings about this ending in the comments. Let's keep the conversation alive, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing transformation and the power of connection. Join our community because your support means everything.